Hi teachers, this is Amber from I'mThatTeacher.com, and I would like to help you have the best first 5 days of school. This is a guide for the middle grades language arts teacher, and if you turn and look at a mirror or you feel the top of your head, you know what that is? That's your teacher hat. You've put it on, you've taken off your whimsical carefree summer hat, and here you are, ready to start another great year of school. I can guarantee you must be a great teacher because even before the school year starts, you're investing your time and your resources to make sure that your students have the best first 5 days of school. So I hope this video and the PowerPoints and all the accompanying resources on the website help you enjoy these first 5 days and maybe do something a little bit differently than you have before. As we get started, let's look at some first day fails. What do we not want to have in the first 5 days of school, or really any time for our students? We don't want embarrassment, fear, or boredom. Now, no one plans for any of these, do they? But unfortunately, sometimes we don't prevent them, and then we spend the rest of the year recovering from them because we unfortunately and accidentally embarrassed a student during a roll call or during an icebreaker. Fear, we came on too strong, and now they don't like the class and they're never going to because they're so scared of all of the demands and procedures that you really tried to reinforce that first day. Or maybe it was just utter boredom. They have been read rules and procedures and handed out textbooks all day, and they get to your class and they are just bored out of their mind. So let's plan to prevent embarrassment, fear, and boredom by instead making these 3 things our goals: building relationships, establishing expectations, and gathering data. Our first 5 days should be all about these 3 things. If you have an activity you love to do that first week of school, make sure that it fits one of these 3 goals. And everything you'll see outlined in the next 5 days ties back to building relationships among our students and between us and our students. It comes back to establishing those expectations, procedures, and policies. Instead of just reading them to our students, we're just going to establish them in a more non-traditional way that as we model them, our students see how the classroom is going to run all year long. It's never too early to establish those expectations. And then we're going to gather data. We want to know about our students. We want to know who they are, and especially as language arts teachers, we want to know their relationship with reading and what they love about books, what they don't love about books, and how we can help fill in those gaps and those skills that they're needing. This is data that we want to gather. But do we want to hand out a survey on the first day of school? Do we want an interest inventory? Do we really need to know on that first day how many books they have at home in their, home library? Do we really need to know their favorite genre on that very first day and we need them to identify it from a list? I don't think so. I think there are some better ways to go about gathering data than handing a survey to a stranger. Because after all, if someone walks up to me in the grocery store and says, "Hey, would you mind telling me your thoughts about the produce section?" Well, I don't know that person, and I'm not sure how honest I'm going to be. I'm not sure what their intention is with this data that I'm giving them. And after all, they are a stranger. I don't feel comfortable with them asking me these personal questions about the produce section. Our students are in the same boat. We don't know them, and they don't know us. So on that very first day, or even the first week, let's not ask them too personal questions. We love those interest inventories, we love those surveys, and those can be useful if we do actually use them and not just stick them in a file that we never look at again. But let's save those until we've done number 1, until we've built relationships with them. Once we've built some relationships and bonded over things like books or games or other things that we're going to try through those first 5 days, then we can hand out those surveys. Then we can ask them questions about themselves, and then we can even share about us. But until we do that, we want to save those surveys and those inventories until later. We've got to build the relationships first, establish expectations, and let's gather data in some more non-traditional ways that will still help us learn about our students and help us plan for the rest of the year. So with these goals in mind, let's jump into day 1. Day 1 is going to be kind of crazy. Maybe some stuff you have never done before, like number 1, no talking to the whole class. In this approach, we are eliminating ourselves as a transmitter of information, and that being our only role. You're a teacher and you know a lot, but guess what? Your students have access to way more information than you could ever give them in a lifetime because they have these little devices that can connect to a whole worldwide web of information. And so we want to take ourselves out of that role as being just a transmitter of information. I know on the first day our students need some information. They need to know about lunches and what time the bell rings and where their bus is going to pick them up. But they're going to get that information in other ways besides you standing in front of them and reading long announcements or going on and on and on about how long you've been teaching there and what they're serving at lunch and what lunch line you think will be the best one for them to pick. Let's save all of that. Resist the temptation to get up in front of the class and make lengthy announcements or just start talking because you're trying to fill the silence. Instead, let's follow a lesson plan that allows for you to make much better use of your time and help make your students feel safe and comfortable in this new environment that they're in. So, everything that we do, we are going to keep in mind that we don't want to get up in front of the class and make big announcements, even giving directions. That is not our goal for day one. And it will totally blow their minds. They will have the most memorable day one in your class because you will definitely be the only teacher that doesn't do that. Let's also try to take attendance without calling names. In day one, if you look at the PowerPoint, there's directions that have students get a piece of paper from the front table that has their name on it because you've seen your roll and you've printed out a piece of paper with every student's name, or you've handwritten them, or you've made labels, or however you decide to do it. They get that sheet of paper, and if they don't see one with their name, they grab a blank sheet of paper and write their name. And then as you come in, you can take a quick glance at that table, look around everyone in the classroom, make sure they have their sheet of paper with their name on it, and do that attendance without calling names. Again, this is a great way to avoid that embarrassment factor for you and your students. There are so many issues with names that it's much better to do it in a nonverbal way, isn't it? Independent reading. We want to establish the expectation that we are readers. So they will quickly grab a book from the classroom library, have a seat, again, flexible seating wherever they like, so they're safe, they're comfortable, and you're gathering data about what students like to sit in desks, what students like to sit together, what students like to sit in your desk because they already on the first day want to push those limits. So they're doing some independent reading of a self-selected text. You're gathering data about what kind of books they chose. And even as you go around, you see their personal introductions. As soon as you take attendance, you go around and have a quick 30-second chat with each student. You can ask them maybe why they chose that particular book. This personal introduction time is for you to find out about their name. They'll have written a quick name description, not a gigantic essay about their name. No one wants to do that. You don't want to read those. Just ask them, what's your name? What do you want me to call you? How do you pronounce it? And have them write that down on their sheet of paper. So when you come around, you can immediately know their name, introduce yourself, and then have just a quick chat. Could be about their book, could be about something you notice about them, anything at all. We're keeping it light. We're keeping it just small talk. But it's that seed that we plant for the rest of the year. This is where the relationship starts on day one. When you can leave on day one knowing that you talked personally to every one of your students. That is huge. So go around and have those personal introductions. It may take the majority of the hour. That's all right. When you have just a few minutes left, let's hit them with some book talks. I pick 3 to 4 books that are all different genres, and I quickly, again, less than a minute, book talk it. And then I ask them, hey, which one of these 3 or 4 would you like to read? Write it on your sheet of paper and then tell me why. And because they're different genres, I'm gathering some really quick data about which of my students love sci-fi fantasy, which are attracted to nonfiction, which are more comfortable with, say, realistic fiction. And so when I get that sheet of paper back, I can thumb through them really quickly and know kind of what groups I have of what students prefer which genre. Before they leave, we want to have them start on a first impressions task sheet. This task sheet, which is a much nicer way of saying homework or worksheet, asks them to just look at each class they've had that day and describe it using a tone or mood word, and then maybe rank it 1 to 5. How did you feel about the class? And again, this response sheet is available on the website. And this way, you're looking at some vocab. How do they describe their classes? How developed is their vocabulary in describing, the atmosphere of their classes? And you're also creating a really cool artifact that you'll pass back the last week of school and have them see how first impressions aren't everything. So voila, you're now teaching, a golden lesson that will serve them for the rest of their lives, that, they thought this class was going to be one way, and sure enough, at the end of the year, they see it was completely different, wasn't as bad as they thought it would be. So that first impressions task sheet also sets the expectation that in this class, we do work and we expect it to be turned in. Because guess what they'll do in day 2? Day 2, the first thing they have to do is turn in that first impression sheet. Now, the rest of the day deals with the culture of the classroom. Day 2, we want to start really focusing on those relationships between our students and give them some chances to interact with each other. Instead of book talks on day 2, because we don't want to book talk every single day, let's change it up a little and do a movie trailer of a movie that's based on a book. So think of any movies that are coming out or that have just recently come out. I like ones that I know my students haven't seen yet, so nobody has any spoilers for us. And I show a movie trailer. Your students love movie trailers. I mean, let's face it, they love movies. Anything that they get to watch in class is awesome. So just a few seconds on the board, they're watching a movie trailer, and then you might mention, hey, I've got the book that's based on over here in the classroom library. Then we move into building that culture. We want students to start building relationships and interacting with one another. So I labeled this icebreakers. As you'll see in the PowerPoint, I don't call them icebreakers to the students. Nobody likes icebreakers. I don't like them. You don't like them. Yet we subject our students to them. So instead, let's have some purpose and meaning behind these icebreakers, as we'll call them, which are really just chances for our students to interact and, again, build those seeds of relationships. So the first way we do it is non-verbally, with lines without talking. There's a few different tasks for the students to complete without talking. So non-verbally, they have to say line up chronologically by birthday, or non-verbally, they have to get into groups based on their eye color. And this gives you a chance to gather data about who are your leaders, who are your followers, who are your more shy students who just wait to be told what to do and in the end up in the wrong order anyway because they just maybe don't care. Who are your students who are going to be pushing the boundaries, who say, well, but you didn't say we couldn't do this, and they kind of try to find ways around it. And that's great. Let them do whatever they want. This is a chance for you to observe, if you give this particular group of kids a task, how do they go about accomplishing it together? Some great data that you're going to get. And then we do a little bit of speed dating. I call it 114-second conversations because I happen to be in room 114, and so we make our conversations with our speed date partner 114 seconds. It's a good amount of time, but mostly I just like to play on the fact that that's the room number. In the PowerPoint, you'll see 10 different topics that we put on the board one at a time, and with each topic they have a partner. They have, a little less than 2 minutes to talk with their partner about that particular topic, and it is a wide range of topics that they go from, sports to siblings to traveling to books and music and video games. And if you feel like there's a little bit of lull in the conversations, feel free to shout out a question that could get everybody talking about that topic. Again, if nothing else, if they don't talk to one of their speed date partners for the rest of the year, at least they had that one conversation with them. And if they ever did need something from them or they wanted to talk to them, they would have something to go back to. So instead of them just being a complete stranger who you had that class with that one time, at least hey, well, I remember that, on that second day of school, we were talking, and for like 2 minutes we had to talk about aliens, and you were telling me how you really liked that one movie with the aliens. And they can start that conversation. It gives them something to look back on rather than just having these cold, non-existent relationships all year long. Then we'll use the last part of the hour for some writing philosophy. And there's a great commercial out there that demonstrates my writing philosophy, which is that creative writing and looking at and studying the craft in the context that it was written in is a much better way to study writing than just rote memorization of grammar rules and syntax rules. Instead of just memorizing those prepositions, let's look at really good prepositional phrases in a piece of writing. So this will lead us into writing workshop, which we'll do in one of the following days. But we're just getting into the philosophy. I show this quick commercial of a little boy named Max who, while his teacher is lecturing about nouns, writes this love letter to the girl next to her, and the teacher reads it aloud and is even touched by just how beautiful it is in the language that he uses. And so we talk about that and how we want to be creative writers who can use our imagination and just really develop that skill of becoming a good writer. And then we practice that with a sentence picture pass. This is just like telephone. When you start with one sentence and you pass it down the line and see the ridiculous version that it ends up as. Here, everybody starts with their own original sentence on a sheet of paper that they write. It is passed to the person next to them, who then draws a picture of that sentence. And on the PowerPoint, when you show your students, there's an example there where it starts with the cow jumped over the moon, and then there's a picture drawn of that. And then the student who drew the picture covers up the sentence, passes the sheet of paper to the next person who only sees a picture. And of course, what do they do? But write a sentence based on the picture. So I assure my students, the more ridiculous your drawings are, the better, because they'll make some really funny sentences. And this goes on and on for as much time as you have. It's the last item that we're doing for the day. So just until the bell rings, your students continue to write a sentence, draw a picture, write a sentence, draw a picture, and then leave a couple minutes to pass it back to the original writer of the sentence, and they can see how their sentence got transformed through pictures and other sentences, and even have some students read them aloud if they think they're pretty funny. What have your students done today? They've interacted with each other. They've bonded over some funny conversations and maybe the funny activity at the end. But all in all, we've created a classroom where we were able to get our students up and moving and interacting with one another, helping to create a safe and comfortable place for them to learn for the rest of the year. And again, all of this was very organized and there was no chaos to it. And we didn't have to get up in front of the class and have these lengthy directions. By using information on the board, they're able to take responsibility for their own learning and see, okay, what are the directions on the board? What do I need to do? In day 3, we actually do get into a writing workshop. For the book connection at the beginning, like I like to do at the beginning of every hour, whether it's a book talk or a trailer, day 3 is great for a read aloud. Just picking a book off the shelf and saying, man, read this first chapter. You read aloud to them and then you stop right before the end of the first chapter where there's definitely going to be a really great cliffhanger, and you put the book back on the shelf. You could give the students a few minutes to read in their own independent book. Again, we want that every day, them reading 5 to 10 minutes, just to kind of give them a little taste that in this class we are readers and we read every day. Our text for day 3 is a syllabus. I like to choose a syllabus from a local community college or local university of a course that students generally have to take for whatever degree they go into. And I get a copy of that syllabus, give it to all of the students, and we just start talking about it. What do you see? What do you notice? What is this about? What is this for? And we end up talking a lot about text features. They have bulleted lists in the syllabus. Oh, there's numbered lists. There's lots of bolded headings. There's maybe even some tables or diagrams. There's some hyperlinks here to different websites. We make a list on the board of all of those text features and kind of the content. What does a good syllabus have? What kind of information? And then bam, you turn it around on them and they write their own syllabus for a course that they would want to teach. This is a genuine writer's workshop where we've taken a mentor text, we've looked at what they did well, and then we do it ourselves. This time it's with a syllabus. I have students choose anything they think they are really good at. And they are experts at something, and here you're establishing the expectation that I believe you are good at something and you can share that with the world. You can teach us all something that we didn't know and we'll be better for it. So I've had students do anything from makeup that contours your face to skateboarding to how to make moccasins, how to string a guitar. So they are the professor, we call them, and they're making a syllabus for what their course would look like. And so they follow those same criteria that we saw in the mentor text. You've got to have bold headings, you need to have bulleted lists, you need a table that shows your grading scale, you need a schedule of what you're going to study during each class. And so they spend time, and this is actually something they'll take home and continue working on because it is exciting for them to know that we value their interests. In fact, I tell them, whatever course you choose, I don't want it to be school related. Don't pick, math. What is something outside of school that you like to do that you feel like you're an expert on? And by and large, a lot of them do choose video games. And so we get a lot of syllabi about, how to get through a certain level of a certain video game. Again, they're creating content. They're creating a document that has been modeled after a mentor text. We don't call it writing workshop yet, but we've given them a taste of what it's going to be like the rest of the year when we do writing workshop. Day 4, we've got to establish procedures at some point, right? Day 4 is a great time to do that. They're feeling comfortable, they know some people in class. I always start with a book trailer video on day 4 where I've just found a book I think they'll like, and I go to Scholastic or whatever website, anything on YouTube, where has a good book trailer. I show that to them. Again, they love to watch movies. So start the hour with just a 1-minute book trailer, and then always point to where it is in your classroom library so they can check it out and read it whenever they like. From there, we go to our syllabus. Okay, the syllabus for our class gets handed out. Students look over it. I'm not lecturing from it. I'm not giving them a cute little scavenger hunt of where to find information in it, because I need it to be meaningful for them. And so I think the most meaning we can make from a syllabus is when we actually experience the procedures that are outlined in the syllabus, because that's what we really want for them, right? Is to know how to do stuff in our class, especially if your students travel all day. Every teacher has different procedures. They don't know what to do when they need to go to the restroom, or they forgot their pencil, or they need to go to the nurse. And so by acting out the procedures on day 4, they're going to make a little bit more meaning and have that concrete memory of what to do. So I pass out cards to every student. Now they only have half of a procedure, and their job is to look in the syllabus at what they think the other half might be, and then get up and go find the student who has their other half. So let me give you a couple of examples. One might say, you hear a loud intermittent alarm, and you see everybody, look nervous. Okay, well that is probably the fire alarm. So you're looking in your syllabus for what to do when you hear the fire alarm. You see that you need to exit the classroom in an orderly fashion and head toward the back doors by the library. So you get up and you find your partner who has that other half of the card. The other half of the card says, proceed calmly and quietly out of class and head toward the back doors by the library. So when those two people find each other, they come to me, I make sure that they're a match, and then they plan a little demonstration. You could call it a skit if you want, where they're going to model what to do with that procedure. It could be something as simple as one card says, I forgot my pencil. And then the other card says, borrow a pencil from the pencil jar at the front of class. It could be something that is one of your pet peeves that you really just want to convey to the students, hey, do not do this. I know for me, it is when another adult comes into class and needs to speak to me or needs to speak to a student, and my students think that that is their cue to just do whatever they want and start talking. So I have a procedure card where one half of it says, another adult comes in and needs to speak to the teacher, and so the matching side says, continue working without distraction and, respect the time that you're given to do your work without talking. And so the students get up, and sometimes their demonstrations are really simple where they just read their cards, but a lot of times you'll get students who really want to jazz it up and they want to show their acting abilities and truly demonstrate what that procedure looks like. The best part is that after each one, you can discuss purpose. I always bring it back to, how does this procedure contribute to your success or your safety? That's what we want with every procedure we make, okay? We don't want procedures that are just built around our pet peeves, right? We want procedures that contribute to all of our students' success or their safety. And so after each one, I ask them, hey, why do you think I have this procedure? How does that help you be more successful, or how does that keep you safe? And so we're able to discuss why these procedures are in place. Middle schoolers need a why. If they don't see a purpose in it, they're not going to do it, and they're definitely not going to respect it. So day 4 gives you a chance to discuss those procedures and their purposes. We jump into day 5 and we close out our first week with reading workshop. Now in my classroom, we do reading workshop several times a week. It is kind of the basis for how we become good readers. And so I start the hour with some student book talks. Hey, they've had 4 days to do some reading in their independent reading. So let's talk about what you've been reading in your self-selected text. Sometimes I do it in partners, I could do it in groups, or even just as a whole class. Raise your hand, tell us what you've been reading. And sometimes it's as simple as that. Just hold up the book and read the title to us. And you'll have other students that really kind of want to go on and on and on about everything that they've read in their book so far, and that's fine. We are setting that expectation that we talk about books. And this is also a good time for you to gather data about which students really do feel comfortable already sharing about what they've been reading. Then we jump into some anchor texts. Anchor texts are, of course, what anchor the lesson, and today's lesson is about character traits. How do we know the traits of a particular character? What evidence do we gather from the book? And then what are some descriptive words we could use to describe that character? So we have two anchor texts, Names Nombres by Julia Alvarez and My Name, which is a little excerpt from House on Mango Street by Sandra Cisneros. And there's links to both of those texts that are online in the PowerPoint. So we start with Names Nombres. Students start reading over it, and it's a longer text, so we just read just the first little bit. And we talk about the main character, Julia, and how she feels about her name, how other people feel about her name, and just some words we could use to describe her. We do the same thing with our next anchor text. I've modeled with Names Nombres, but in groups they'll work on My Name by Sandra Cisneros. And in Reading Workshop, of course, after I have modeled and then they have done it as a class with some supervision, maybe in partners or in groups, then they have to practice it on their own. So that independent practice time is going to be done with their self-selected text. They'll get 20 to 25 minutes to read in their self-selected text and make a little T-chart with the left side showing descriptive words about their main character and the right side evidence of how they came about those descriptive words to describe the character. We will have modeled this with Names Nombres. We modeled this as we collected responses from the groups with the My Name essay by Sandra Cisneros. So we're establishing that reading workshop model, that I don't just stand up in front of the class and assign and assess. I don't just tell you what to do and then grade it. We work together. First I model, then you work together practicing it in that safe, comfortable environment of a peer group, and then you try it on your own with the independent practice. So we end the week really strong with Reading Workshop, and this is a tried and true lesson. Like, this is a lesson plan that you would have that covers objectives. So the first 5 days haven't been completely fluff. They are meaningful. We've kind of built up with the Writing Workshop, the Reading Workshop. We've built those relationships with students interacting together. We've definitely established the expectation that we are readers. Every day we're reading and we're talking about reading, and we've also established some procedures by acting them out and looking through the syllabus to see what's expected of us. Have we done these three? Absolutely. We've done all three, all day, every day, and that's what we need with the first 5 days. We want nothing more than to build relationships, establish expectations, and gather data in a way that is memorable for us and for our students. Again, I'm very guilty of just wanting to hand out a survey or hand out an interest inventory, collect them, maybe look over them, and then, file them away. And that is easy, and that might be a meaningful route for you. But I know with my middle schoolers, I need something more. And so these first 5 days were kind of born out of my own frustration with wanting to do it better, but just not knowing how. And so I hope that these ideas for the first 5 days will help you in making some really memorable days for your students. I hope you have a great year.